Welcome back to the Deep Dive. I want to start today by asking you to think about a date, a specific date.
Yep.
Think about the day one of the biggest change in your life. Maybe it was the day you walked into your boss's office and quit, or the day you finally signed the divorce papers. We tend to memorialize those dates, don't we?
We do. It's the human default. We love a milestone. We
Yeah.
love the receipt, the signature, the physical proof that says, here, right here is where everything changed.
Exactly. But today, we are going to argue that, well, you're looking at the wrong timeline entirely.
Huh?
We're working with a text called The Genesis of Ambition. And honestly, calling it a text feels a bit generous. It's more of a philosophical fragment.
It really is.
But it suggests that by the time you walked into that office to quit, you weren't starting anything. You were actually entering the final act.
It's a bit of a mind bender for sure. We're essentially doing a deep archaeological dig on a single sentence today.
Right.
But that one sentence, it challenges the entire architecture of how we view human motivation. It argues that we are fundamentally unreliable narrators of our own lives.
So let's just get the source material on the table immediately. The core idea we're unpacking is this. The beginning of change didn't happen when you thought. Change started when you realized you wanted more.
It sounds so simple, almost like something you'd see on a coffee mug.
Totally.
But if you actually apply real pressure to that sentence, it kind of falls apart into two very distinct, very heavy ideas. First, there's the accusation, it didn't happen when you thought.
Right.
And second, the redefinition, it started when you realized.
Let's start with that accusation. It didn't happen when you thought. I mean, it feels a little revisionist, doesn't it? If I quit my job on June 1st, that's a fact. It's a data point. How can some text tell me that's wrong?
Well, it's not questioning the calendar date. It's questioning the classification of that date. In business, we have this concept of lagging indicators versus leading indicators.
Okay, break that down for us.
A lagging indicator is a metric that just confirms a pattern that's already happening. Revenue, for example. It's often a lagging indicator. By the time the money hits the bank, all the sales work was done months ago.
I see.
The text is arguing that the big action, the quitting, the moving,
Break up.
the breakup, it's just a lagging indicator. It's the exhaust from a machine that turned on a long, long time ago.
So we celebrate the exhaust because it's the only thing we can see.
Precisely. Because the leading indicator, the thing that actually predicts the change, it's invisible, it's internal, and because we can't see it, we don't give it any credit.
Right. We act as if we were just stagnant right up until the moment we exploded,
Yes.
which is why we beat ourselves up. I think about this with my own career. I probably spent 2 years complaining about a job before I finally left it.
Yeah.
And the story I tell myself is, man, I wasted 2 years. I was stuck.
That is the standard interpretation. But if we use the logic from the Genesis of Ambition, you weren't stuck. You were in what psychology calls the pre-contemplation and contemplation stages.
You ever hear of the trans-theoretical model of change?
I can't say that I have. That sounds like a lot of syllables for a Tuesday. It's a mouthful. But it's a framework from behavioral psychology. And the crucial thing is that action, the part where you actually do something, is step 4.
Step 4.
Step 1 is pre-contemplation, you don't even know there's a problem. Step 2 is contemplation, you know there's a problem, but you're not ready. Step 3 is preparation. And then comes action.
So when this text says, the beginning didn't happen when you thought, it's really just aligning with that model. It's saying we ignore the first 3 steps of the ladder.
Exactly. And that's dangerous because it makes us feel like failures during the most critical part of the whole process.
Yeah.
That 2-year period where you were complaining, the text would argue that wasn't complaining. That was incubation. That was your brain slowly, methodically rewiring itself to tolerate the risk of leaving.
Incubation, I mean, that word implies activity.
Yeah.
But it feels so passive. It just feels like sitting on the couch.
Right.
It feels passive because it's internal, but think about the sheer energy it takes to maintain a state of wanting more while you're stuck in a situation that's giving you less. That creates a massive amount of psychological friction. And that friction isn't waste, it's heat. It's the energy building up to the eventual explosion.
Okay, so that leads us to the catalyst then. The
Yeah.
source says, change started when you realized you wanted more. I kind of want to push back on this word, realized.
Go for it.
Why realized? Why not decided? In the whole self-help world, we love the word decision.
Yeah.
You know, you're one decision away from a different life.
Right.
But this text, it specifically avoids that word. It avoids agency.
And that's a vital distinction. A decision implies you're the architect. You
Yep.
sit down, you weigh the pros and cons, and you choose to change. But does big change really happen like that?
No.
Yeah.
Usually it hits you like a truck on a random Tuesday.
Exactly. A realization is an epiphany. It's something that happens to you. It's the moment all that subconscious data finally breaches the surface of your mind.
Right.
It suggests the wanting was already there, lurking in the dark, and you just finally turn the light on.
It's interesting you say subconscious. It makes me think of that feeling, when you're just unhappy, but you don't really know why yet. You're just irritable.
That is classic cognitive dissonance. You have a belief or a desire, I want more, that conflicts with your reality, I am here. And that conflict creates stress.
And we just try to numb it.
Most of us do. We drink, we scroll, we distract. But
Yeah.
the realization this text talks about is the moment you stop numbing and you actually look the tiger in the eye.
So the genesis isn't the moment you fix the problem. It's the moment you finally admit the problem exists.
And that is so much harder than fixing it, often. Admitting I want more is an act of destruction. It destroys your contentment. It destroys your ability to pretend that everything is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Once you have that realization, you can't just go back to sleep.
That's the scary part. That's why we avoid it. As long as I don't admit I want to be a writer, I can just be a content accountant. But the second I realize I want to write, being an accountant becomes painful.
Painful, yes, but also impossible to sustain. And that is why the text identifies this moment as the true beginning.
Okay.
Because once that realization locks in, the clock starts ticking. The trajectory has shifted. You might stay in that job for another 6 months, but mentally, you've already left the building.
I love that image. You've already left the building. It really validates that messy middle part where you know the truth, but you haven't acted on it yet.
And we need to validate that, because if you don't give yourself credit for the realization phase, you interpret that gap as cowardice. You think, I know I want to leave, so why am I not leaving? I must be weak.
But the text is saying you aren't weak. You're just in stage 3. You're in preparation.
You're in the genesis. You are currently changing. The butterfly is dissolving in the cocoon. It looks like mush to the outside world, but it's actually the most violent, most important part of the transformation.
Let's pivot to that second half. Wanted more. Is there a risk here of, glorifying the hedonic treadmill, this idea that we just endlessly want more stuff, more status,
Yeah.
and we're never happy?
That's a very valid critique. More is such a loaded word in our culture. It usually means consumerism.
A bigger boat.
A bigger boat, exactly. But I don't think that's what this text is talking about at all.
How do you read it then?
I read wanting more as the definition of ambition in its purest sense, like potential energy in physics.
Okay.
If you are perfectly content, you are in stasis, you're at rest. Wanting more creates a voltage gap between who you are now and who you could be.
So it's not about greed. It's about capacity.
It's about the ideal self. Psychologists talk about the actual self, you right now, and the ideal self, the version of you that has actualized your potential. The wanting is just your brain recognizing the distance between those 2 points.
So when the text calls itself the genesis of ambition, it's saying ambition is just the awareness of that gap.
Yes, and that's why it's so uncomfortable. It's the Zeigarnik effect, that tension of an unfinished task. But instead of an unfinished email, it's an unfinished life.
Wow.
The realization that I am not yet who I'm supposed to be is the engine that drives all human progress.
And if we accept this, that the internal realization is the real starting line, it forces us to look at everything differently, not just careers.
Oh, absolutely not. It's a universal law. Apply it to relationships. When does a relationship actually end?
Well, we'd usually say it ends when someone moves out or, after the big fight.
That's the lagging indicator again. That's the explosion. But if you look at the timeline, the genesis of the end probably happened 6 months before that. It happened on a quiet Tuesday evening when you looked across the dinner table and realized, I am lonely in this room with you.
Oof. Yeah, that's the moment.
That realization, that quiet internal click was the earthquake. Everything that came after, the arguments, the therapy, the breakup, was just the aftershocks.
It's frightening. It means we're all walking around with these secret truths that have already changed our lives, and we haven't even told anyone yet.
We are all carrying secret timelines. We present the official timeline to the world. I quit in November, but we live the real one. I quit in my heart last March. This text is inviting us to respect the real timeline.
But here's the devil's advocate question. Is there a danger in this? If I tell myself, hey, I realized I want to get in shape, so the change has started. Doesn't that just give me a fake sense of accomplishment? Can't I just sit on the couch realizing for 10 years?
That is the trap of what you could call passive insight. Insight without action is just daydreaming.
Right.
But I'd argue that if you can sit on the couch for 10 years, you haven't actually realized you want more. You've just engaged in a fantasy.
What's the difference?
True realization, the kind this text describes, is intolerable. It creates that cognitive dissonance we talked about. If you truly realize, I need to be healthy to see my grandkids grow up, but you keep eating junk food, the psychological pain will become unbearable. You will eventually snap.
So if you can sit comfortably for 10 years, you haven't really realized it.
You've just flirted with the idea. True realization compels action. It might not be immediate, but it becomes inevitable.
It's like gravity.
Exactly. Once you step off the ledge of I am content, gravity takes over. You might fall slowly, you might grab a branch on the way down, but you are going down. You can't just hover in midair.
This brings me back to the listener. Someone who might be feeling stuck right now. They're hearing this, and they have that gnawing feeling, but they haven't done the thing yet. They feel like they're standing still.
And this is where the compassion of this idea comes in. This text is a permission slip to stop calling yourself lazy. You are not standing still. You are vibrating. You are accumulating the necessary potential energy to make the leap.
It reframes waiting as loading.
It's the arrow being pulled back on the bowstring. To an observer, the arrow isn't moving. It looks static. But physically, the tension is rising every single second. The release is just the final millisecond. The real work was the pull.
So if you're in the pull, don't let go.
Don't let go. And don't discredit that tension. That tension is the genesis.
I want to try to make this practical before we wrap up. Realizing sounds so abstract.
Yeah.
How do you know if you've had the genesis moment or if you're just, complaining?
I think you look for the inability to unsee. That's the marker. When you complain, you're just venting steam so you can stay in the machine. You complain about your boss so you can tolerate your boss for another week.
Right. It's a coping mechanism.
But the genesis moment is when the coping mechanism stops working. It's when you complain and you don't feel better. You feel worse. It's when the distraction of Netflix just doesn't numb the feeling anymore. That's when you know the timeline has shifted.
When the old tricks stop working.
Yes, that is the signal. You have outgrown your container. And once you realize you've outgrown it, you have to break it.
The genesis of ambition. It's a lot heavier than I expected from such a short fragment. It's essentially saying our internal world is the real world.
And the external world is just playing catch-up. It prioritizes the invisible work. We live in a society that fetishizes the visible, the hustle, the grind, the launch. This text asks us to respect the quiet, invisible work of changing your mind.
Because you can't change your life until you've changed your mind.
And changing your mind is a biological event. It's the precursor to everything. It is the only thing that matters. Everything else is just logistics.
So as we close this out, I want to leave the listener with a challenge. We've been talking about this gap, right, between realization and action.
The gap, yeah. We usually measure our lives by the actions. I did X in 2020. I did Y in 2022.
But the challenge is to look at the other timeline, the shadow timeline.
Right. To ask yourself, how long have you actually been on your current path? If you quit your job today, you didn't start today. You probably started 3 years ago. Give yourself credit for those 3 years.
And maybe the more provocative question, what genesis has already happened in your life today that you're pretending hasn't started yet?
That's the one. That's the one that keeps you up at night. Where have you already realized, I want more, but you're still acting like you're content? Because if you have, the clock is already ticking. You're already in the transition. You might as well start planning for the landing.
On that note, good luck with the landing. Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.